Well, Republicans held yet another ridiculous political stunt hearing. Of course, this comes in the wake of their impeachment effort just collapsing as one of their key informants was indicted for fabricating the story, getting information from Russian intelligence, then delivering that to the FBI, trying to pass it off as credible about Joe Biden, all these crazy allegations about him being bribed, and it turned out to be allegedly a misinformation operation. And so as that falls apart, they have to find something else. And they were sort of handed something pretty nice, which is Robert Hur releasing a report about Joe Biden's handling of classified documents. We talked about this weeks ago. But in this report, Robert Hur, who I will note is a Republican, he included, while he was putting forward the information that he's not proceeding with charges against Joe Biden because charges are not warranted based on Biden's handling of classified documents, but included some cheap shots against President Joe Biden, criticizing him for his age and his memory. And so now it's time for Robert Hur to come in front of this committee, the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, James Comer, excited to see if they can keep this story alive and hurt Joe Biden in the process, asking Hur why he didn't indict Joe Biden, grilling him on the details about Joe Biden's age and memory, etc. Now, we learned some interesting things about this report and specifically about the recollection of Joe Biden maybe not being what Hur originally broke it down to be, but we'll get to that later on in the segment. We'll also get to Adam Schiff just tearing Robert Hur apart for the absolutely inappropriate way he constructed this report. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to it, and click the alert bell if you would. Now here, to open this all up, was Jerry Nadler playing a brutal compilation of Donald Trump during this hearing, forcing Fox News, because they're covering the hearing live, to play probably for the first time a compilation like this of Donald Trump having gaffe after gaffe, mental glitch after mental glitch. And this served as a reminder that maybe the obsession from Republicans of Joe Biden's gaffes aren't exactly justified.
One of the great memories of all time,
James Webb. I don't remember the names. Don't remember the name.
Viktor Orban. Did anyone ever hear of him? He's the leader of Turkey.
By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley is in charge of security.
3 years later, how about that?
Did you actually have a one-on-one with Comey then?
Not much, not even that I remember.
I like besitos.
We have languages coming into our country. We have nobody that even speaks those languages. They're truly foreign languages. Nobody speaks them. Saudi Arabia and Russia will repeat your...
I have a really good memory. Your next wife was a woman by the name of Marla Maples.
That's right.
Do you recall what years you were married to Ms. Maples?
It's called like Up Here, and it's called Memory, and it's called other things.
So you don't remember saying you have one of the best memories?
I don't remember that.
And Putin, has so little respect for Obama that he's starting to throw around the nuclear word. You've heard that, nuclear.
We have to win in November, or we're not going to have Pennsylvania. They'll change the name.
And I talked to Putin a lot.
How much did you vote for? Did you ask him that?
I don't remember that. I saw that this morning. I don't remember asking him that question.
I have a good memory and all that stuff, like a great memory.
For 20 years, they were fighting ISIS. I defeated ISIS in 4 weeks.
And we did with Obama. We won an election that everyone said couldn't be won.
I'm not cognitively. And you know what? When I am, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to be the first people. I know my people. You'll say, all right, Trump, you did a good job. Get the hell out of here. That's it.
So it's an interesting way to start on the part of the Democrats in this hearing. Just reminding people that when you hear Republicans make a huge deal out of Biden trying to make sure he's getting a date correct, or maybe he mixes up something a little bit, that tends to happen, especially with the person that they love so dearly. And Joe Biden cooperated in every single way that he could, including sitting for a 5-hour interview with Special Counsel Robert Hur as a part of this investigation. And that's where this report criticizes Biden a lot. But the transcript from that interview has come out, and that's what we'll get to in just a second as to what we've learned from the actual transcript and Robert Hur misrepresenting how things actually took place. But before getting to that, I will note that after the State of the Union address and Biden delivering it so compellingly and effectively. We've heard less from right-wingers about Joe Biden's cognition. Now they're criticizing him for being too loud there and being too jacked up, as Sean Hannity called it, speculating about him being on drugs, which, as I've been saying, that's a compliment. If they're having to go to theories about Biden being drugged up, that's how good the speech was. All right, that's good with me. So it's getting tougher for that reason, because of a lot of America seeing such a well-delivered speech. But then also it's getting tougher because of the compilation you just watched. And that's just scratching the surface. We've been going over for months now Trump's glitches at every single speech. And so because they won't dare talk about that with Trump, these sorts of criticisms of Biden aren't landing as powerfully as maybe they used to. But now let's discuss one of the revelations that came of the transcript from Hur's interview with Biden actually becoming public, because we had his report where he announced he wasn't bringing charges against Joe Biden, but then had all these cheap shots. Now we actually ourselves can go through and see if Hur correctly characterized in his report the conversation that we have the transcript of between him and Joe Biden. Again, 5 hours of this sort of detail-oriented conversation. And one of the big lines of attack from those on the right, and something Hur brought up in his report, is that Joe Biden couldn't remember when his son died, which is a pretty explosive claim and adds to this characterization of Biden being disoriented and not knowing even when his own son died. Quite to the contrary, actually, what took place in the conversation. Biden remembered the exact day and month that Beau died. So if we look at this excerpt from the transcript, you have Robert Hur talking about documents. During this time, they were kind of discussing something related to the documents at issue. Biden saying 2017, 2018, they're getting set on what they're referring to. Then Biden notes and injects in this conversation, remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and he said some other stuff. And then down here he said, but if I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening though, what month did Beau die? Oh God, May 30th. Nobody has to tell him. He asks himself, what month did Beau die? It was May 30th. Exact day. Then somebody else says 2015. And then Biden, again, asks as a confirmation, because you got to get these things right in an interview with a prosecutor. Goes, was it 2015 he had died? And then somebody says it was May of 2015. He goes, it was 2015. That's not him going, when my son died? Oh. No, he says May 30th. Was it 2015? Yeah, it was 2015. Like how normal humans talk, And then that got twisted into Joe Biden couldn't remember when his son died. Now, by the way, even if he couldn't, that would be no indictment of his cognition, because I think a lot of people, I have people in my life that I can't remember exactly. If you asked me, if you confronted me in an interview, or if I brought up and then was trying to remember exactly when it was, I wouldn't be able to tell you. It would take a second. It would take going, was it 2012, 2013? That sort of reasoning goes on when you're making sure you're getting dates correct for a prosecutorial situation. My goodness. And by the way, this same transcript reveals this. Mr. Hur understood that, and this was a different place, to be clear, in the conversation, just noting that he wasn't critical of Biden's memory to Biden's face. That was very helpful. We have some photographs maybe to show you, but you appear to have a photographic understanding and recall of the House. Then here's a White House spokesman addressing this subject of Beau's death.
This is more context about how the death of his son ever became an issue. It wasn't as if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't asked about the death of his son by the special counsel, was he?
The president was in fact asked about his work on his book about his son's passing, about his work after his vice presidency on the Biden Cancer Initiative, something that was so deeply motivated by Beau's illness and passing. These are deeply personal and emotional issues for the president, and he's talked openly about those to the American people for years, about how he overcame that grief and how he worked through it and how he hoped to find purpose beyond this grief. And that was what he was being asked about. And so anybody who has even a familiarity with the president understands the personal nature of this, and that he would talk about his son Beau and the impact that he had on the work that he was pursuing after his vice presidency on the book and on the cancer work. And election. And I think that the American people can see clearly that the president doesn't need a reminder as to when his son died. He says right there, May 30th. This is something that the president carries with him every single day, the memory of losing his son. Families across this country.
Right. So, again, the fact that Biden being the first to say May 30th, someone else then says, and the year was 2015, without Biden asking for that. They just threw that out there. And then he to confirm it wasn't 2015, it was 2015. That's not him misstating and going, it was 2018. Oh, it was 2015? And it wasn't him going, I don't know. And even if he did do that, that happens. Especially when you've gone through about a gazillion dates in a 5-hour conversation. And again, that got twisted into this really bonkers story. And you've seen different reactions. Brian Tyler Cohen writing, Robert Hur lied publicly about Biden forgetting when his son died. Katie Britt lied publicly about Biden presiding over a woman being sex trafficked. That story was stunning. I covered it on the bonus show yesterday, lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. If you want to get the daily bonus show, they will say quite literally anything to hurt Biden. They have no shame. Always assume they're lying because they are. You also have this response from Matthew Gertz. The Washington Post ran 33 stories about Biden's mental fitness in 4 days following the Hur report. 33 stories in 4 days. After reviewing the transcript, the paper concludes that Biden doesn't come across as being as absent-minded as Hur has made him out to be. But nobody sees those headlines as boldly as they saw the initial headlines. Biden can't remember everything. Again, that sort of stopped since he crushed the State of the Union, but the damage was done for a lot of people. Then you have a really great set of back and forths between Adam Schiff and Robert Hur during the hearing that's going on as I'm sitting down to record this. And Adam Schiff makes some incredible points about just how inappropriate and needless some of the statements were in Robert Hur's report. I'll emphasize again why I think Hur did this after watching these clips, but I'll remind you that Adam Schiff is a former federal prosecutor, so he's speaking from some experience here.
You understood we released it.
I understood from the Attorney General's public comments that he would make as much of my report public as he could, consistent with legal requirements and DOJ
And you also
policy.
understand DOJ policy that you are to take care not to prejudice the interests of the subject of an investigation, right?
That is generally one of the interests that DOJ policy requires that prosecutors respect.
And it was your obligation to follow that policy in this report, was it not?
It was also my obligation to write a confidential report for the Attorney General explaining completely
But
my
what
decision.
you did write was deeply prejudicial to the interests of the president. You say it wasn't political, and yet you must have understood. You must have understood the impact of your words. You must have understood the impact of your decision to go beyond the specifics of a particular document, to go to the very general, to your own personal, prejudicial, subjective opinion of the president, one you knew would be amplified by his political opponent, one you knew that would influence a political campaign. You had to understand that.
Yeah, you had to. I'll play one more clip continuing on that point here.
In the rules, Mr. Hur, what is in the rules is you don't gratuitously do things to prejudice the subject of an investigation when you're declining to prosecute. You don't gratuitously add language that you know will be useful in a political campaign. You were not born yesterday. You understood exactly what you were doing. It was a choice. You certainly didn't have to include that language. You could have said vis-a-vis the documents that were found at the university, the president did not recall. There is nothing more common. You know this, I know this. There is nothing more common with a witness of any age when asked about events that are years old to say, I do not recall. Indeed, they're instructed by their attorney to do that if they have any question about it. You understood that. You made a choice. That was a political choice. It was the wrong choice, Mr. Chairman.
So Adam Schiff is absolutely correct there. So then why did Robert Hur do it? And I've mentioned this before, but he knew the political implications of what he's going to say, but he also knew the political implications of him choosing not to charge President Joe Biden based on Biden's handling of classified documents. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the reasons why that was the correct decision, as I have in the past, or all the reasons why trying to equate Trump's classified documents case and all of his obstruction with Joe Biden fully cooperating and the other differences in the two cases. I won't go into all that since we've done it sometimes in the past, but so different. And Hur knew it was the correct decision not to charge Joe Biden, but also knew, especially as a Republican, that Republicans would be very upset and would want to criticize her as another member of the deep state or whatever, protecting Joe Biden at every turn, even though it was obviously the correct decision. And so to compensate for that, he showed Republicans, I'm not doing Biden's dirty work. I'm willing to be very critical of him and put things in this report that will be devastating politically for Joe Biden. Some of them didn't even turn out to be accurate, as I walked through with you with the story about Beau Biden. And so he was trying to protect himself from right-wing criticism instead of just doing what is appropriate and what is in line with prosecutorial morals and ethics. And I think that's pretty disgusting that he chose to do that. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel.